These are my tiers of college football playoff contenders for 2025. So the way this works is that there's a team that I think even has a remote chance of making the playoff in 2025. They're somewhere in one of these tiers. So that means if your favorite team is not on the list, that means I think that even in the best case scenario, there's no shot at them being in the playoff this year. But don't let that stop you from watching college football, because there's always the Pop-Tart Bowl. But getting into it, our first tier is G5 champs that are not Boise State. And this list consists of UTSA, Buffalo, Tulane, James Madison, and Memphis. Now, of course, there's going to be other G5 champs. Not all conferences are included in this list, but these are the ones that I think have a real chance at actually making the playoff if they do win their conference. The next list is similar. It could be Big 12 champs. And in this tier, we have Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, Iowa State, Utah, and BYU. All of these teams really only have a chance at making the playoff, in my estimation, if they win the Big 12. If they're not a conference champion, there's no shot at them getting an at-large bid for 2025. Next is a one-team tier, and it's just Boise State. They should far and away be the G5 representative. They were a top 12 team last year, even outside of their conference championship. They have the one game this year set up against Notre Dame on the road. If they win that game, they're almost certainly in, probably 12-0, 13-0 with the conference championship. Either way, they should be 12-1 with the conference championship and fighting for a home playoff game yet again. Next is Big 2 teams that are entirely schedule dependent for 2025. And this is 3 teams. We've got Illinois, Missouri, and Nebraska. Illinois and Missouri are essentially the same story. 9-3 last season. They bring back a lot of their team. Can they take advantage of a weaker schedule in the Big 2 conferences, end up with a 10-2 record, even without any upsets, and sneak into the playoff? And then Nebraska lost 5 one-score games last season and then lost to Indiana in a blowout. But if they can turn some of that one-score luck into actual wins and Dylan Raiola can take a step forward, they also have a chance with their schedule to end up 10-2 and sneak their way into the top 12 at the end of the season. The next tier is probably not, but maybe. And we've got 5 teams here that have the talent to do it, but can they actually pull it off in 2025? We've got Oklahoma, USC, Florida, Michigan, and Indiana. Really, Oklahoma, USC, Florida are all kind of in the same boat. Successful in the 2000s. They've really struggled to get it going in the last couple seasons. USC and Florida longer than Oklahoma. But they have to rely on maybe new quarterbacks or shaky quarterback play or even injury-prone quarterbacks and tough schedules to really make it happen in 2025. But they have the talent to do it. Michigan is on the same boat. Obviously, national champions in 2023, had the worst passing game in the entire FBS outside of Army and Navy last season. Can Bryce Underwood give them at least enough passing so where their defense and their running game can elevate them into the playoff in 2025? And then Indiana, do they have enough coming back, and can Chignetti make that magic happen again where they can maybe just sneak in with the 10-2 or 11-1 record, similar to how they did last season, and find a victory if they do get there? Our next tier is most likely need to win a Tier 2 conference, Big 12 or ACC, but there is a slight path for them to make it in as an at-large team, and that's Miami, Arizona State, Texas Tech, and SMU. Miami has the clearest path of all these teams. If they beat Notre Dame week 1, they can do the SMU thing where maybe they get into the conference championship game with 1 loss and lose there. They should still be in as an at-large team, but they probably should fight for that conference championship game more than anything so they don't fall into the trap they had last year at the end of the season. Arizona State and Texas Tech, they both have top 25 teams on their schedule. They're the 2 probably most talented teams in the Big 12, and they have undercover one of the most important games of the season, I think week 6 or week 7, when they play each other. The winner of that game has the golden ticket, but again, the conference championship is not absolutely necessary, but they should be striving for it. And then SMU, they have the toughest schedule in the ACC, play Baylor and TCU in the non-conference in-state rivals, and then they play all 3, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville. They really need to get out of all those with 4 victories. If they can beat Clemson, maybe they can get away with 3 victories, but really they need to win the 2 non-conference games and 2 of the 3 conference games if they want to make it without the conference championship. Okay, from this tier up are teams that I would bet on being in the college football playoff in 2025. Obviously, Boise State, I said I would bet on them being in, and then there has to be a Big 12 champion, but the rest of these teams I think could make it in as an at-large conference champion, whatever it is. I would predict them to be in the college football playoff in 2025. This tier is at-large teams with a smaller margin of error. That's LSU, Alabama, and South Carolina. LSU has the highest ceiling of these three teams. They should be a national contender if everything goes right. They're bringing back one of the best returning QBs, plus the #1 transfer class, depending on the list. It's either them or Texas Tech, and some of the best talent in the country even before the transfer class. But the key here is that Garrett Nussmeier, the returning quarterback, has to be at least Heisman finalist level for them to truly reach the highest highs, which could be a real national championship in LSU. If he doesn't do that, they're going to really struggle to make everything go the way it should go or it could go. They play 5 teams on this list, including both of the other teams in this tier, Alabama and South Carolina. They have to find a way to win the big games. But most importantly, they haven't won an opening game since 2019. 2019 actually was the last time they won a national championship as well. They beat Clemson in a national championship that year. This year, they opened the season playing Clemson. If they can win that week 1 game, then you can really start to see this team being a real national contender through the rest of the season. If they lose against Clemson, there's still a shot for them to make it, a good chance for them to make it to the college football playoff, but I don't think that you can really consider them a national contender at that point. If Brian Kelly can get them ready for that game and keep them ready through the whole SEC schedule, which he struggled to do, 3 games lost in a row last season when they really fell apart after they had a chance to be in the SEC championship game. If he can right those wrongs this season, finally get it all together at LSU, you could look at this team ending up in Miami at the end of the season. Alabama, there's one question. Are they the team that beat Georgia early in the season, or are they the team that lost to Oklahoma late in the season? Obviously, Kellen DeBoer is coming into his second season. 9-3 in the first season is good, but this is Alabama. He might even be on the hot seat. He needs to prove that he can guide this team through an SEC schedule all the way through the season. If Ty Simpson or whoever ends up being the starting quarterback can be a little bit of a better passer late in the season than Jalen Milroe was last season, they might be able to avoid those same pitfalls they had, but they need to make sure they win 3 of their 4 road games. If they can do that, they will be probably in the SEC championship game and definitely in the college football playoff. If they fail to show up on the road like they did last season, then we're going to be looking at what does Alabama do next going into 2026. And South Carolina, one of the most exciting teams in the country. It all comes down to maybe the best player in the SEC. Is Lenora Sellers able to stay healthy through the season? There's a real argument that they would go 11-1, 12-0 last season if he doesn't get hurt late in the LSU game, which they lose by 5. They end up losing the game he comes back to Ole Miss by 21, and then they lose by 3 to Alabama. If he could stay healthy, definitely Alabama and LSU, they're in the game. Ole Miss was a tough game, but he was, losing some snaps in his freshman season that really put them down. They have the talent. They have one of the better coaches in the SEC, an ascending talent in Shane Beamer. If they can find a way to make the playoffs this season, you could be looking at one of the SEC powers through the rest of the decade. But it all depends on their sophomore quarterback staying healthy and guiding them through the season. Now, this is an interesting tier because all 3 of these teams play each other during the season. So if they all take care of business outside of these games and potentially split against each other, all 1-1, we could be looking at SEC championship game between 2 of these teams. We could be looking at all of these teams being high seeds in the college football playoff. Either way, I believe that they will find their way into the playoff, but it really depends on what they do against each other to see how far they can go in the playoff. Okay, our next tier is at-large teams with a little bit more of a margin for error. And this is Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia. And for Oregon, it just comes down to Dante and DeCorian Moore. The defense is going to be great. They're going to be able to run the ball. They have a schedule to find their way into the Big Ten championship game if they take care of business in everything outside of the Penn State game, even potentially upsetting Penn State on the road early in the season. But if Dante Moore can prove to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, they have a real chance at winning some games in the playoff. If he can prove to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, maybe they have a chance to get a national championship that they've been looking for, and I've been looking for a long time. And the other side of that is DeCorian Moore. Evan Stewart is down for the season. DeCorian Moore comes in as the highly touted wide receiver, true freshman. If he can prove to be a true playmaker on the outside, combine that with Dante Moore being a true difference maker at the quarterback position, they've got talent all around the field, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to make a run at the national championship. The other Big Ten team, Ohio State, they have similar questions. Can Julian Sayin step in as a freshman and be a difference maker at quarterback, or at least take care of the ball and let the wide receivers and running backs and all the talent they have around the field do what they need to do for the offense? The other side of that is both Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles, offensive and defensive coordinators, are out. They bring in Brian Hartline, who moves up from co-offensive coordinator to the sole offensive coordinator, as well as Matt Patricia coming in for $2.5 million a season as a defensive coordinator. Can they do the same job of these two guys that were a big part of them winning the national championship last season? That's the question to be answered. Ohio State is a super tough schedule. Of course, they open up at home against Texas. If they can win that game, they're well on their way to not only a Big Ten championship, but maybe number one team in the country when we get to the end of the season. If they lose that game, they're really going to have to fight those Michigan Demons at the end of the season. 4 straight losses at Michigan. If they can't win this season, what are we looking at here? Of course, Ryan Day has a national championship, but some rivalry games, they matter. So let's see what happens at the end of the season. That's where the whole season comes down to. And last is Georgia, and they also have quarterback questions. Gunnar Stockton's going to take over. We saw him play 2 games last season. Obviously, they beat Texas in the SEC championship game. They lose to Notre Dame in the college football playoff. But if they're resting it on Gunnar Stockton's shoulders, it's not going to happen. They need to be able to run the ball like they weren't able to last season. If they can do that, and they can play defense like they always do, they have one of the most talented teams in the country, if not the most talented team in the country. If they can put it all together and not rely on Gunnar Stockton being a superhero, then they have a real chance of not only being an SEC champion, but making a run in the college football playoff. If they rely on Gunnar Stockton to be something that he has proven to not be so far, then I don't see a real powerful team in the playoff. I think they'll make it either way because they'll just overpower teams on their schedule, but I don't think that they're going to be able to play the best teams in the country without having a good running game and a solid quarterback. Now, our final tier is true national contenders. These are the teams you should be expecting to see in the semifinal and expecting to see in the national championship. We've got Clemson, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Clemson's a hot pick. They got the #1 returning production. They're bringing back one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Cade Klubnik. They have enough tests throughout the season, both at the beginning of the season with LSU, the end of the season with South Carolina, as well as their ACC schedule to test themselves to get into the playoffs and be ready for those big-time games. But will they be able to keep it all together throughout the season, or will it show that maybe college football has passed Dabo Swinney by? Maybe you need the transfer portal. Maybe you need to be doing the things that are so intrinsic to the game in 2025, intrinsic to college football in 2025, to really be one of the top teams in the country. This is the year to prove it. They've got the team coming back. They've got the continuity. This is the year to prove that the old way still works. The flip side of that is Texas. Can they prove that $40 million can buy you a national championship in college football in 2025? They have a tough opening weekend. Sark and Arch Manning are going to have to prove that they can win the big games, and they're going to have a chance to do that week 1. The biggest game probably in the country, maybe one of the biggest non-conference games that we've seen in quite a few years, going to Columbus. Can they knock off Ohio State in really Arch's first big start? Obviously, Ohio State has their own questions that game, but if Texas can come in and take care of business there, they have a real clear path to make it to the SEC championship game yet again and be one of the top seeds going into the college football playoff. But if they lose that game, they have on the road against Florida, on the road against Georgia, the Red River rivalry. There's some real time to prove that they can do it during the regular season. This is the team that has the most chance in this tier to have it end in disaster this year. I would not bet on it. The smart money is on them making at least to the semifinal, but they need to prove it early on in the season that they are someone to be reckoned with, that this $40 million is worth it, that Sark is truly a good coach, not just a good recruiter, and that Arch is more than just hype. If they don't do that week 1, then they're really going to have to buckle down and win the tough games throughout the season. Penn State has the same questions. Can they win the big games? This is probably their most talented team since the 80s, maybe arguably more talented than their national championship games under Joe Pa. They have Aller back. The backfield is back. The defense is back. They bring in Jim Knowles, national champion defensive coordinator from last season. Can they put it all together? They have the problem under James Franklin of winning the games they're supposed to win and losing the games they're not projected to win. 0-6 as an underdog under James Franklin. They have to make the change here. They could probably make it through the regular season and make it into the playoffs. They definitely will make it through the regular season and make it into the playoffs, even if they lose the game against Ohio State, which is probably the one game they'll be as an underdog. But when they get to the playoff, they're going to need to knock off somebody that they're not supposed to beat. They didn't do it last season against Notre Dame. They're going to need to do it this season. They're going to be an underdog at some point if they make it to the deep part of the playoffs. They need to take care of business. They need to step up to the occasion, and James Franklin needs to show them that they can do that. If they can't, this is the season. If they can't do it this season, then when are they going to do it? James Franklin is not a bad coach. He is a good coach, very good coach. But if he wants to be a great coach, he needs to win a game as an underdog, and that needs to happen this season. And last but not least, Notre Dame. If Jeremiah Love was healthy through the playoffs last season, they might have won it all. They have the most translatable style of anybody across the country. Marcus Freeman coaches running the ball and good defense. They've got a great defense, one of the best in the country. They're bringing back the best running back in the country, a great offensive line, even though there's going to be some changes. The question is at quarterback. C.J. Carr or Minchie, whoever ends up being the quarterback this season, probably C.J. Carr. If they can keep it together, if they could guide this team and maybe even offer a little bit more passing than Riley Leonard did last season. Riley Leonard was great at running the ball last season, but if they can offer just a little bit more of a stretch in the field, this is a super, super dangerous team. They have a little bit more of a tough schedule than they did last season. Of course, opening up on the road at Miami in August is an extremely tough game to win. But if they can pull that off, they've got a clear path to not only go maybe 11-1, match what they did last season, but maybe 12-0, end up as one of the top seeds as there's no restriction on them being one of the top seeds, getting a first-round bye, and marching through the playoffs. I had hated on them early in the season. I hated on them last season, just saying that their schedule didn't prove that they were one of the best teams. If they go through their schedule and win all the games, or even go 11-1, it's going to prove that they're one of the best teams in the country, and they're going to have a chance at winning a national championship in 2025. We'll see if they can pull it off. For that final tier, it's all championship or bust. If they don't win a national championship, those 4 teams, they don't win a national championship this season, they will look at it as a failure. There's other tiers here that might be looking at it the same way, but for sure, those 4 teams need a championship game, need a championship win in 2025. Otherwise, it is a failed season. But thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Is there anybody that I left out of the tiers that maybe has a chance in 2025, in your opinion? Is anybody too low or anybody too high? And who do you have winning the national championship in 2025? I will be doing another video next week, where it's my full college football playoff preview. I'll give you my full bracket as well as my national champion, and give you an idea of how I'm going to cover the college football landscape this season, which is unique and cool, so make sure you tune in. If you want to watch more of my videos before then, I do have those for you. Right here, I've got my video I did last week, which is my perfect layout for the college football playoff. Check that out if you're interested in the format changes in 2026. Up here, I've got a realistic conference realignment for 2030, so check that one out. Other than that, I've got my subscribe link on this side. We're getting closer to the season, so make sure you join us, and we'll catch you next time. See ya!